Alright, so we are about to head off on a spring seeker adventure. It's to a spring I have not been to before, so we're going to see how that process goes and how successful I am. One slight problem that we have up here, I'm in the Catalinas this afternoon, is that it's all still really snowy. So this will be the first time I've gone spring seeking in the snow, so we'll have to see how that turns out.
So the first thing I'm going to do is check out my Gaia app here, see the whole Catalinas, zoom in, and now you can see that I am in the little orange arrow there in my car, and I can see the point for Bear Wallow Spring. It looks like there's maybe two routes to get there, that road and then also that trail. So I have to decide which of those routes makes the most sense for me. Looking around, doesn't look like terrible bushwhacking.
So the first and most dangerous part of this journey is what I'm doing right now, which is walking along the highway. So I'm going to stop recording so that I can keep an eye out for cars. I'm over here now at the intersection of Bear Wallow Road and the Catalina Highway, which means that I supposedly passed by where the Sunset Trail crosses over the road. And I didn't immediately see it, but also it's all snowy over there, you can see. So I think I'm just going to walk on the road. That seems like the safest approach at this point.
Checking my Gaia once again, I can see I've made it to the road that appears to lead towards the spring.
So I want to talk for just a second about safety stuff, because I'm right now walking on snow, which is not my preferred habitat, and if it gets colder this afternoon it might freeze a little bit, so it's a little freaky. But I am prepared. I have micro spikes, so hopefully that'll work out for me okay there. And then also you might see I'm carrying my inReach, and it is on, so even though I'm out here hiking by myself, hopefully if I have an issue, I'll be able to call for help with that. So I've been walking along for a little bit now, and I came to a road junction. This is 614, and this is the road I've been walking on now to Bear Wallow Campground. So if I weren't totally sure where I was, here would be a good chance to pull out my motor vehicle use map and to look for Forest Service Road 614, and I would be able to put myself right on that map.
I happen to have a digital copy of the motor vehicle use map right here, and because it's geo-referenced, you can actually put it into another phone app and you can figure out where you are on the map. So even though this road doesn't show up on Gaia, it does show up on the motor vehicle use map. And if I rotate it the direction I'm looking, we can tell that that's the fork that I'm at.
One of the things that's always good to be on the lookout for is signs of people. So here's an obviously much more modern sign that the Forest Service put in. But then looking across the way, if you look through there, there actually is another constructed thing over there. I think it's just a sign, but when you're out spring seeking, it's always good to check on that kind of thing. And there's a family sledding over there too, which is fun to see. So here's another example of me walking along, and then all of a sudden seeing all this human constructed stuff. And if you listen closely, you can actually also hear water running down there. So the next tricky thing is going to figure out how to get down there. It's pretty steep right here. I know it doesn't look like it in the video, but I'm going to go around a little bit and see if I can get a more shallow approach to this. I may end up going back more towards the main road and then dropping down and walking up the drainage. We'll have to see. So I think this is part of the spring, but as is usually the case, you find the most downstream part and then you have to keep following it up to find out more about the spring. It's also a good idea when you're here to take a picture of any features that you might find, because later on the survey will ask you some of those details. Well, it's a good thing I kept walking upstream a little bit. If you look down into the channel now, you can see there's another spring box, it looks like right there, and then there's some kind of a rock wall dam there. So I'm still looking for a safe way down. I think pretty soon it looks like it's getting a little shallower, so I'll head down there and be able to take some closer looks.
Just worth checking in again how close I am to the actual point. I still have to go a little ways upstream, it looks like, to get to that, and across the drainage up the hill.
Okay, so I think I found my spot. I was walking on the road along here looking for something less steep than that, and came to this little shallower slope here and this big tree. and then down to the right, I think that'll be my ticket down into the drainage. I just did some nice little side hill steps into that slope to get down carefully. And so now I'm down here where the spring is. And real quick, I'm just going to go check my map and make sure that I'm still near where the point is versus a little bit downstream that way, which is where I started to see all the development.
Yeah, it looks like I did overshoot the spring a little bit so that I could come safely down that slope. So I'm going to just walk a little ways this direction. You can see my GPS looks like it's drifting a little bit. That's pretty typical if it doesn't have a great signal. But I'm going in the direction back towards where the spring is, and looks like I'm still going to have to cross over the center of the drainage here to get up to the actual point.
I'm very much parallel with the actual Bear Wallow Spring point right now. So I decided to kind of cross over here carefully and see if I could find where the spring is. And as I was coming along, I noticed, hopefully you can see this pretty faint line right here coming along. And there's even actually a T-post hidden behind that tree. And so this is the Sunset Trail that I mentioned I couldn't find the trailhead for when I was by the Bear Wallow campground. So I'm going to go ahead and take the easy walk, and I'm going to poke around for the spring at this point, but I really think it is probably lower down where those development features are. And then I'll probably take the Sunset Trail back to the road. Not seeing any evidence of vegetation change here. I'm approaching the official point in our database. But one thing to know is that something like 70% of our springs are actually riocrine or in the stream bed type springs. So it's kind of unlikely statistically that the spring is up here on this random hill slope, but it's good to check just in case, because we do have hill slope springs as well.
Just checking in on my Gaia here, you can see as I zoom in, there's actually 2 points for Bear Wallow, ours and the National Hydrography dataset that's in the base map of the Gaia app here. And my location, it looks like, is drifting a little, but I'm within maybe 50 feet of the spring point right now. It's always good to check around if you see another point like that on the base map, because it might be more accurate than the spring point that we have in our dataset.
The trees are all the same kind of overstory here. I'm not seeing a change in vegetation. Admittedly, it is winter, so I might end up submitting my spring seeker survey here and saying that I can't really judge because it is winter, and perhaps other times of the year it would be more obvious. But I'm still up on the hill slope. I'm yet to go down and actually check all the spring boxes and things down in the channel there. So another thing I'm thinking about as I'm coming down from that hillside where I did not see the spring is that maybe I could take a new path and go over that way. But instead, I really think, since I made it safely here, I can kind of see my footsteps through that area. I'm just going to go back the way that I came up to this, or down to the Sunset Trail, kind of trusting that past Sarah was making the best choices as she climbed up the hill. It's not always the case. Sometimes you want to go back a different way, but I have also been cliffed out trying to explore new ways to get back from springs. So like I said, I think this is the water source here. I think it looks to me like a big spring box, and that they've really gathered the water here. I don't know if this earthen dam that's around here, you can kind of see, I don't know if that was helped to channel the water at some point. It looks like, yeah, there was kind of an overflow spill out here. And maybe this was actually at one point dammed in kind of a little pond. I don't know. So that's something I'll have to go back and look up in the water rights documents and see if I can learn more about this spring. But for now, I've taken photos of the spring box with my backpack, recognizing that the spring source might be under all of that. And that might be worth coming back to when it's not all snowy, and to see if the water's emerging a little bit upstream there. I actually can't tell. There is a broadleaf tree right there, and it's lost its leaves. I could walk over there, but I'm a little bit uncomfortable with the snow. It looks like it's probably good 2 or 3 feet deep there, because it's this open area. But this would definitely be a spot to come back and check when things have grown back. Those might be alders, which would be a really clear piece of evidence that that is the spring source over there.
I'm going to try adding a waypoint a little bit further downstream here. If you'll notice, it puts it at the middle of the screen and not at my location. I actually think my location is inaccurate, so I'm going to move it over a little bit, put it right on the Sunset Trail, and then go ahead and name it for this spot up here that is a little bit different and a little bit further away from the actual point, but clearly shows that people have been collecting water here.
So I've now worked my way over to the other spring box over here. I don't know if this is part of the same spring or maybe it's two emergences of Bear Wallow Spring. This one you can see is actually overflowing in water right here. So I'm gonna take some pictures and then I'm gonna open my Spring Seeker survey right here. What's interesting to me here is I'm standing at the spring and the water just kind of runs about this far and then just disappears into the ground. So there's quite a bit of infiltration happening at this spring. But I suspect this big box actually collects it all and then it flows out here. Some interesting stuff that I see. I see a little hose up there in the corner. I'll go over and check that out in a second. I think it's probably just trash. So I came over to investigate this hose and it's going into this little box right here, which has a spigot and a water bottle. And I gotta say, I don't know what's going on here. I'm gonna have to look at the water rights document and figure this out. It seems like they encapsulated the spring in the spring box I'm standing on right now, but then there's other little sources that they captured as well. So this is definitely an interesting site for human development. And also, if you are going to go poking around and stuff, of course, just put it back the way you found it. And then when I found it, this lid was kind of propped up on these rocks. All right, so I've taken some photos and some videos, and so I'm gonna find myself a nice little spot to sit down, which I'm not gonna lie, it's this spring box right here feels pretty comfy. So I'm gonna go ahead and work on my Spring Seeker survey and just see if there's anything else that I missed. Oh, one thing that is here that I see is another broadleaf tree. It looks like a maple to me, but all the leaves have fallen down and they're all on the ground. So I'll be able to put that in my survey too, which is pretty cool.
First off, open, continue without signing in, open the Spring Seeker survey, and collect. All right, getting started. So the name of the water source is Bear Wallow Spring. Oh, and of course, I always manage to mistype things. I'm going to check the site ID. I actually saved it with the point over here in Gaia. So I'm going to grab that real quick and then take that back to Spring Seeker. Of course, putting my name in as a surveyor's. I am alone today, so it's just me. And my contact details. The date looks right, the time looks right, the location, let's see it load. Yep, it put me right in the Catalinas. At least it doesn't have me at 0, 0. The water's wet. It's less than 6 feet long and 1 foot wide. For photos, oh, I don't think I actually took a photo with my backpack near the water source, so I'm going to have to quickly get up and do that. So here we go. You could do it from within the app, which is really convenient. And it's hard for me to decide, that's the largest pool and the source, so I think I'm going to use the same photo for those two. But you wouldn't be wrong if you did something different and you took a close-up picture of the source and then a different picture of the pool. We just really want to capture as much information as possible about the spring itself. So since I've already taken that picture of the source, I will just add that. It seems like Survey 123 never likes to play nice with my photos, so I'm just going to select all of the photos that I've recently taken, and that makes them available within the app for me to choose from those whether I want to add them. So I can either do it this way, or I can take photos from within the app itself. So now that I've given it permission, I'm going to select that photo of my backpack and the water source right there. And whoops, I pushed the wrong button. Largest pool, once again, is that same spot. because the water just disappears into the ground after that. I haven't taken a photo of vegetation landscape yet, so let me go ahead and get that. It's a little hard to tell with all the leaves off the trees, but hopefully this will capture a sense with the skyline in there as well. And I have all the space for extra photos. I know that coming up there's an opportunity to put in photos of the springboks that I'm standing on right now, but there's not a place to put multiple springboks in. So I'm gonna take those photos of the other weird stuff that I saw to be able to do that. So yes, I'm sitting on a springbok, and I can include the photo right there of that. I didn't see a trough. It could be under snow. I did see piping. I saw that rock dam upstream, so I'm going to go ahead and include that here. I didn't see a well. Well, it could be that that feature that I saw, but I'm not sure, so I'll leave it as no. Didn't see any power sources. Yeah, I changed my mind. I'll put the well picture in there. I don't see any evidence from mining or livestock or trash from people, so I'm going to go ahead and put none for all of these. I also don't see any impact of fire, but I will answer the questions so that I can record that it seems as if this area didn't burn. All right, so the water is less than a foot deep. We're in the stream channel. In terms of spring position, we're worried about whether or not erosion would bury it, and it is at the bottom of the stream channel. So taking a photo upstream of the steepest slope, it's one of those slopes I didn't want to come down, and then taking a photo downslope is basically the area that I'm looking in right now, back towards where the water is exiting the springboks. I don't see any unvegetated slopes, so that's why I picked that one. In terms of woody plants, I can't guarantee that I don't see a lot of these things here because a lot of the trees have lost their leaves. So I really think that someone's going to have to come back and survey this. So a lot of this section I'm going to end up leaving kind of blank. Snails are tricky, and we're going to learn more about that soon. And so you can check out our coffee break on snails to learn more about identifying those at springs, which will be pretty exciting. That'll be on our website soon. Don't see any amphibians or any of these aquatic insects, although it is pretty chilly. And I'm going to go ahead and enter a couple of details, particularly about how it would be good to resurvey this site when it's summer and the trees have leafed out. Last page, site description. It seems like this site probably always has flowing water, but I'm not sure, so I'll put usually. It's definitely worth coming back another time. In terms of the area affected, this one's really hard because of all that upstream development, but I'll do the best that I can based on looking around and choose the option that makes the most sense. Checking my Gaia again real quick just to get a sense of the direction that I'm facing. Looks like my arrow is mostly pointing north and west, so I'm going to select those options on the Spring Seeker survey. And now I'll enter some details on the site description. And this is all material that you are welcome to go home with your survey unsubmitted and then edit later. I actually recommend doing that sometimes, unless you're pressed for time, because a lot of times you'll think about something else while you are doing it. And just real quick right here, I'm grabbing the GPS of the other upstream springboks and dam, or possibly a little pump and a dam, I'm not sure. So that's something that later on someone would be able to go check again as well. And just in the box here, I'm indicating that I'm not totally sure what was going on at that upstream site, whether it was a different spring or a part of the same spring, or maybe it was a little pump for water that was being held behind that dam there. The spring box with water that I'm sitting on is pretty large, and so I wanted to explain that there in case it didn't come through in the photos that I included. I probably should have, in retrospect, put my backpack down by the box and then backed up maybe 10 feet or so to make sure that I had an overall site picture. I think I got that in the videos, but not actually in the photos. And here I am writing, checking, I should check the water rights documentation. Usually I try and do that before a trip, just to see if I should be looking for a trough and a tank and piping and a well and any other things that might be there. I did check this later though, and I could not locate the water rights documentation for this particular spring, so it's going to take a little bit more digging. For the access, I got the road, took the road to get here, so that was pretty straightforward and a good walk until the slope was actually shallow enough to get down safely. And so that would be my recommendation for someone else coming back to this site. And here's where I put some information in the survey where I haven't actually verified whether you could take the Sunset Trail from the Catalina Highway. And so that's something that I think I did wrong here, and it would be good to be cautious about something like that in the future. For cultural importance, I'm not totally sure about this particular site in terms of cultural importance. The rock dam near the spring doesn't make much sense as a dam itself, at least not when the whole area is snowy and I can't tell. But perhaps it does actually gather a lot of water there. And then here, where I am right now, there's another kind of bench-like feature near the maple, and it's hard to tell, it's covered in snow. So it's definitely worth a resurvey here. And a lot of our invasive plants are, if they are here, covered in snow. So once again, it's probably a better time to come sometime in the summer to be able to get information on this site. So I can go ahead and try and send now. It's probably not going to work because I don't have very much service. So I'll let it try in the background. And I'm also going to add a point here real quick where I am sitting right now at this spring box, because I think it might be of interest to know kind of where through this drainage the various development is scattered. So just real quick, I'll add that point and save it. Oh, and you can see my GPS decided to translocate me there really quickly. But it looks like maybe I'll try and take this trail back to the main road. All right, so I finished my Spring Seeker survey, and I'm still sitting here by the spring. It's really nice, but I'm going to go ahead and head back out on the Sunset Trail, and I'll let you know that I make it back to my car. And yeah, hopefully you've had a fun time exploring the snow with me. Thanks for joining me on this short little Spring Seeker adventure right by the road here. I'm walking out now along the road. Oh, I actually see I see these cute little I think these are maple seeds. Actually, I got distracted. I was gonna talk about something else, but hopefully you can kind of see those. They look like they're a little blurry, but they look like maple seeds to me. There's some here on the ground too, so that's cool. Another maple in the area. But yeah, thanks for joining me on this little trek out from the car. I know we're gonna have to come back and check the plant community when it's not covered in 6 inches of snow. Well, remember how I said you should always go back the way you came because you know it works? Well, I just found that out myself again.
I got all excited to come back on the Sunset Trail here, that now I find that the Sunset Trail goes under the road into this giant culvert, which means that now I have to slog up this hillside or that hillside to get out of here. So that was a fun little learning piece for myself. Luckily this is a big sledding area and there's some social trails on the side that I can follow up rather than tackling some weird snowy bushwhack by myself. But yeah, so learned my lesson again. It's always good to go back the way you came if you're not sure that you're going to end up in quite the right place. So just as I was climbing up out of this drainage down here where the sled was, I came across, I was stepping up and I just walked on this like irrigation box, which is a little weird. And then it actually seems like it's connected to this pipe that's it's actually dripping water. So in some areas this might look like another spring, and in fact I have no idea what's going on. Before I leave, I'll go to the other side of the road right here and just check and see if maybe it's grabbing some water that's trying to flow under the road. But you know, this would be a good question of, do I submit another spring seeker survey? Do I tell Sarah that there's something else going on there? Or do I just kind of you know, catalog it for later? I certainly, as the person who's running the Spring Seeker program right now, I would love to know about water sources like this. It might still be important for wildlife if it runs year round. Sure doesn't look like it. There's not a lot of plants there that indicate that it runs all the time. So I really think it probably is just a drainage feature. But nonetheless, an interesting little mystery to solve before I hop back in my car. So just to conclude that mystery, there's that pipe running an irrigation box. And so I came up here to the road. I'm walking across thinking maybe it's draining over here. I'm like, honestly, I don't know. This stuff is all a little bit mysterious sometimes. There's pooled water, but there's snow all over the place. So maybe there was a wet spot in the road that they were trying to manage, or who knows. But it's a little bit of a mystery. And you would certainly not be wrong if you decided to submit a Spring Seeker survey for something like that, if you find it while you're out looking for something else. So thanks again for joining me, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. So here I am back in the car safely, and so I'm gonna head back down to Tucson now, and I am gonna make sure to let my safety contact know that I am safely out of the field. So thanks again for joining me.
I'm also now really excited that we send confirmations when the survey successfully goes through to our system. So please do remember to enter your time and mileage and enjoy this confirmation that your Spring Seeker survey was sent. To learn more, please check out our website or feel free to contact me directly at sarah@skyislandalliance.org.